Hello, Berry Berry. Welcome to One Account.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, today we're here to talk about periods or menstruation.
Menstruation.
Sorry,
It's okay.
menstruation.
I'm telling you how to say
What's the difference between both the words?
it. Menstruation is like the more formal word, and periods is just more informal. But when you use the word menstruation, you also the menstrual cycle. You also say it with period cycle, but menstruation is also more commonly used when you talk about the entire cycle from period to next period.
And how long is that?
Usually about 28 days in a normal cycle, but it varies from people to people. So for some people, it could, if they don't have a regular period, it could be 30 to 40 days. Some people don't even get it regularly every month. Some might even have a very short cycle, like 20 days, 25 days. So it depends.
So, every 25 days or 30 days depends on the person.
Yeah. But a regular, like when you study it, the regular cycle is said to be 28 to 30 days. So every month.
And how long does it last for?
Between 3 to 7 days. I think that's the normal. For some people, it goes on for like 8 to 9 days. For some there, it's like done in 2. But yeah, it really varies.
So, can you explain a bit about periods? I know you explained the part where how the cycle works, but a bit more in detail.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know that the scientific names, like there's things like the
Doesn't have to
luteal
be-
phase and things like that. There's a couple of phases.
It doesn't have to be scientific.
Okay.
It can be like in simple
But yeah,
terms.
that I get
Because, I think I'm just making this episode so everyone can know, including myself. Even I'm learning from this, even though we had it in school. I was in biology in the 10th grade, but the chapter was skipped. Again, the questions were asked in the exam, so we have no idea what's going on. And I think it also brings in a very awkward situation to ask another woman, let it be your wife, your girlfriend, mother, sister as well. It doesn't have to be scientific. Very, very simple terms so that all of us can understand.
I think the awkward thing is something that, I mean, you mentioned how it's awkward to talk to women or people that we know about periods, but I feel like that should change because it is common. Like every woman or girl will go through it, and it's something that's inevitable. It's something that happens. And so it shouldn't be awkward because it's something everyone goes through. It's kind of like puberty, right? Like for men, they will go through puberty, and for women, this is puberty. And so I feel like it's not something that should be awkward to start with. It should be something that's common and accepted, but it is not. And like you were saying, that we were taught about it in school. I mean, we have the same education that you did in the sense like we were taught the same things as you were. So even we don't know much, but I think it's just that we have to, or we tend to know more because we're living it. And then as we live through it, we may have to like find things out for ourselves, and that's how we end up educating ourselves, which is quite unfortunate because, I mean, it's something that should probably be given more importance to. But coming back to the first question, which was, what is periods?
Oh,
Okay.
just a back context.
Yeah.
What do you say? Context? Is
context,
that me and Betty have studied in the same school, but this is the example what she said. Like, even though we have the same education, we studied in the same school, her knowledge is much more than this.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think our school did justice to educating people about puberty in general. But yeah, periods. So first things first, the cycle starts the day you get your period. So that's day 1 of the cycle. That involves a lot of hormonal changes, which means that's when your mood is low. For some people, the appetite is low. For some people, appetite is high. It's a lot of like, I don't want to say imbalance because it is something that needs to happen, but it's just a lot of shift in hormones. And then right after that, you're more energized. So that's the time when most women, I think if I'm not mistaken, they also have a higher sex drive then. But it also is the time when they have more energy. So when it comes to like gym or like general things, they have more energy to do stuff. And then it kind of goes down again. It gets mellow. That's usually the PMS.
What exactly is PMS?
So PMS is premenstrual syndrome. It talks about all of your mood swings and food cravings, and apparently depression is one of them, that happens right before you get your period. another interesting thing, I don't know if this is too much detail, but boobs start hurting a lot right before periods. Like it.
For everyone.
Yeah. At least for most people that I know have gone through it. So when I was living with my best friend, we both knew we would be getting our periods because these were a few of our common symptoms.
So it starts from the breast?
Not necessarily.
No.
It could be mood swings. It's just everything sort of also happens together. It doesn't have a stage where it's like it starts with this and then it moves on to this and then this happens. So for me, I know I have a lot of cravings right before I get my period. That's how I usually know I'm a few days away from my period. And then right before, maybe 2 days before, my boobs hurt. And then I do get very emotional. I will cry for the stupidest things. And then I will realize it's because I'm going to get my period, because I will get my period. And I'm like, oh, this all makes sense now. I was just going to get my period, which is why I was emotional. I was like crying over stupid things, which is quite common. But then I guess it's not well accepted by a lot of people. I think it's very easy to get teased about such things. Like, oh my gosh, are you just PMSing, or are you on your periods? Quite common, but I don't think it's our fault. It's just our body doing its thing, and it's out of our control.
You were saying that you don't like it when people make jokes.
Yeah.
I've heard this a lot. You have a lot of mood swings, maybe she's in a period. Does it affect you?
I mean, it doesn't affect me in the sense like I don't like it. It's not a fun thing to hear. I usually laugh it off, but
But you laugh it off by hiding something inside.
yeah, I mean, like, I don't like it, but at the same time, it's like not everyone is ready to be educated on things. Like, for example, if someone said it to me and I'm like, oh, but I mean, it's not my fault, they would just be like, okay, but who asked? Or nobody asked. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite easy to dismiss certain things or feelings, which is what I think happens in this case. But yeah, I don't usually like it. I don't think I deal with it. Sometimes I might say something like, I mean, I couldn't help it, or it's not my fault. Most times I just laugh it off.
I've heard from partners saying to each other, I mean, not to each other, sorry, the guy telling the girl, or just in general conversations between friends.
Yeah.
And I think for me personally, in the beginning, I was also laughing with them. But then later when I got to know, as you said, what exactly is going on in your body, that's when I realized, like, okay, this is not something to joke about, something to laugh about. But I can't, people have their own rights. They have their own wish. I think they'll all come for a fight if you be like, it's my mouth, my wish. People to say that. What do you have to tell all the men? There's no way everyone will listen to it because it's like a male dominant world. They're like, she's going through pain. Okay, just ask her to sit in the room, give her food. That's it, nothing else. How do you think this can change?
I think it starts with being open to it. Like,
from a young age?
It just in general, like if I'm supposed to have a conversation with someone about something, they need to be open to the conversation, right? So I think it starts with that, to see if the person is willing to be educated upon it. And then if they are, then it's just education and awareness. I think that's how anything in the world spread. For example, say plastics. Everyone was using plastics, but then it was because of awareness being spread and people being educated about it that, we realize now plastic is not the best thing. There are places that are trying to change things. There's bans and stuff like that now. So I think I think the starting point should be education and awareness. So for men, it could be that, at least in the Indian system, I know other systems have like sex education and things, but in the Indian curriculum, I don't think it's as open. So I think one of the best ways would probably be to start there. But of course, like, I think what our generation can do is when we have kids, we educate them and have open conversations about it. Like, if I were to have a child, I would probably let them know, like, hey, like, today mommy's on her period and she's not going to feel too well. Obviously at an age when they understand, like, not when they're a baby, but, just let them know that it's not a great time for them. They need a bit of patience. They need a bit of time. And just start from there. I think like slowly when, like, it's kind of like how sometimes you hear kids asking like, oh, how are babies made, right? And so if you give them that space to be open, to ask questions, then at some point they themselves might come and ask you like, hey, what is this about? And then you can educate them and then teach them how to be more soft and tender and empathize with these kind of things, which may not be easy, I guess, but I think that's where it starts. It's got to start with education and awareness.
Sure. Talking about India, when you go to a supermarket and buy a period pad, why do they always wrap it in a black paper and give it to you? And when you use it and throw it, also again, you wrap it in a black paper and you dispose it, but not in the common dustbin in the house. You take it and you throw it outside where nobody sees. And it's like hidden under their arms so that nobody sees, and they take it and throw it. Why do you think that's there? Like I've seen a lot of people doing it and I'm like, just throw it.
Actually, didn't even know that. I didn't know that they cover it in like paper when you buy it from the store.
Oh, no?
I didn't know that. But I think it's mostly because in India it's a taboo. They see that as a sign of weakness. I think for most people it's
Where they see what as a weakness?
periods.
As a weakness?
Yeah, in the sense like I don't mean like in the sense that it's like by a weakness, I don't mean like when you like put it on a SWOT analysis. I mean like in the sense that when you see like when you compare it with masculinity, it's like, oh, women in their periods are more vulnerable, which is like not a great sign. And so I think in Indian culture, it's become very common to not talk about these things. And I know a lot of households where like they're advised not to mention it to their fathers or brothers. And they're like, no, you're not supposed to like talk about it. It's a woman thing. It's not for everyone to know. But at the end of the day, how I think it is like, eventually when people get married and if it's going to be a male and female partner, the male is like, they have to know of it, right? And so if they can know about it, if they can know about periods from their partner or be aware of it through their partner, why is it such a bad thing to know about it about your daughter? You know what I mean? So, I mean, this is like in a house. So the hiding and stuff, I don't understand it. But I think that goes back to my point of like creating a house that's aware of these things and like not seeing it as a taboo, not seeing it as a bad thing, not seeing it as a weakness, but rather just accepting it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, periods is what brings life. If it weren't for periods and if it weren't for the cycle that happens, life wouldn't. Okay, would you like me to?
What is the cycle?
I should have mentioned. So when the period happens, why we bleed out is because so the ovaries, they release the egg. And so when the egg falls through the fallopian tube into the uterus, if it doesn't attach to the wall of the uterus, it then sheds, it bleeds out. When the only time it will stick to the wall is when it's fertilized by sperm. So if the egg is fertilized by the sperm, then it creates a cell and then, it attaches to the uterus and it grows. So when it's not fertilized, when the egg is not fertilized is when it falls through. And so you have your 7 days of bleeding because the uterus prepares itself every month to receive an egg. When that doesn't happen, it sheds out. So you bleed, you have the clots, which is all of the walls sort of tearing down. And so if it weren't for periods or if it weren't for the cycle, life wouldn't happen, which I think is a pretty amazing thing. I mean, it's not like men can create life. So if women can create life and it's seen as such a beautiful thing, then why is period seen as a bad thing if it's all part of the same cycle?
I have so many questions. So interesting. So it's more or less our subconscious which is telling you to make a child every month.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, I wish my brain just told me like, okay, you're not pregnant, the end. And I didn't have to bleed for 7 days, but apparently we have to go through a cycle for that.
And what is the difference between an ovary and a vagina?
So Your ovaries are inside. Your ovaries are two little ball sacks, for lack of a better term, that contain the eggs.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
The ovaries are like, this is a bad example, but I said the ovaries are like the ball sacks, for lack of a better term, that carries the eggs. So like how the balls contain the sperm, the ovaries contain the eggs.
This episode is sponsored by Amma's Kitchen, the best home-cooked Indian food in Barcelona.
The vagina is the canal that leads into the uterus. So it's that little hallway that leads in. So baby comes out through a vagina. It's grown at the uterus.
So when the body knows that there are no sperms entering, these eggs break down and come down as blood.
Not the eggs specifically. I mean, it comes out too, but it's the wall, the uterus. It creates this uterine wall and to receive the fertilized egg. But when that doesn't happen, it sheds. So it's sort of like if you put up wallpaper and now you have to like tear out the wallpaper because it's not what you want.
But it comes in a liquid state.
It comes out as clots. Comes out as weird, squishy, muscular blobs. So if I'm not mistaken, not everyone has clots that come out. Or some of them have very little clots that come out, like very small bits that don't really look like blobs. Whereas for some people, it comes out as big blobs. And what I know is if the blood clots are bigger than the size of a lemon or a lime, that means it's concerning and you need to go to a doctor.
So it's not just liquid or blood, it's literally sheets falling off.
It's not even sheets, it's just like these heavy balls. But like they're not, because like it looked like a ball, but then it falls and it's just like blah. And it's just this weird, squishy, muscular thingy. I know that was very descriptive.
It was very descriptive. Oh my God.
I should give a TMI warning.
Yeah, I think so. Oh my God. I literally thought it's just a form of liquid, like red liquid coming out. And these sheets are also red or just...
So I actually know that the color also says if you have a problem. Like bright red, that means you have an issue and it's called endometriosis. It means you have really, really, really painful periods and the clots are really bad. And if I'm not mistaken, it also hurts a lot during sex.
But is it recommended to have sex during this time?
I mean, you can if you want to, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't it hurt?
No, it actually is more pleasurable for the guy because at that time, your vagina is more, like the canal that I mentioned is more open. So I think it's easier for the guy. But also, I've heard sex helps with period cramps. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard and I've read that apparently helps.
So this is helping both the genders, huh?
It's a win-win.
Huh. I really can't get over the sheets falling off, huh?
Yeah.
So that is more painful than liquid blood?
It's not painful, actually. It all just comes out together. You don't even... Like, sometimes you feel it. Like, when you sneeze or when you just get up, you can, like, feel something just fall out of you. And it's not like how you can hold your pee. You can't control, like, the opening or closing of your...
So you should always wear a pad? Yes. And what kind of pads do you... I'm sorry, I have no idea about this. So, like, what kind of pads do they have to be, like, super thick or... Yeah, they have to
It depends. It depends on the person's flow. Not everyone has the same flow. So for someone who has very little flow, they use very thin pads because they don't like feeling it. For me specifically, I feel more comfortable. The thicker they are, the better for me. That's how I'm more comfortable because then I know like there's no leaks. There's it's just safer and I'm not always panicking or stressed out about just blood overflowing. So for me, thick is always better, but I know a lot of people hate thick pads. They love for it to be very thin and they need it to feel like they're not wearing anything.
Okay, so what's the difference between pads, the sanitary pads, and tampons?
Oh, okay. So there's actually three things that people use. So there's the pads, there's the tampons, and there's a menstrual cup. So pads, you stick it onto your underwear. Some of them have wings, which is what I like. So then it like you fold the wings under your underwear. Tampons.
So I'm sorry to stop you. So the wings are there, so it does not move.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like for a person like me, I cross my legs a lot. So if they don't have wings, they all kind of just squish into the center, which means blood leaks. So for me, when I buy with wings, it means it's not gonna move around; it sticks into one place. So for a person like me who moves their legs around a lot and crisscrosses, it's just much better. And tampons are these cylindrical cotton things, and you basically just shove it up. Okay, no, you don't shove it up, but you do push it up your vaginal canal, and that just collects all the blood. So again, there are different sizes. You would have a thin one, you'd have a really thick one, depending on the flow, and you put it in so that a lot of people who go to the beach or who swim during their period use tampons because that means they can get in the water. Whereas with pads, you probably wouldn't get in the water because, well, for starters, it would soak all the water, and two, because then the blood would get places. But fun fact, when you're in water, you don't bleed. So I know it's weird, but as weird as this sounds towards the end of my period, and I wasn't being unhygienic, it was just me in the pool, and it was a family pool. I was in the water and you just don't bleed. So if I were to check my underwear or my pad, depending on what I was wearing, it would pretty much be okay if I was in the water. I think it's a pressure thing. I don't know.
Wow. Okay, this is a very good tip, huh?
Oh, and menstrual cups. I forgot to tell you about the last one. It's basically, like the word says, it's a cup. You fold the cup because it's made of silicone. You fold it in, and again, you put it up your vaginal canal, and then it just opens up, and then the cup collects the blood.
Okay, doesn't the cup and the tampon pain? Like when you put it inside?
I don't know. I'm not a tampon or a cup user. People who use cups, yes, they say it doesn't hurt. They're used to it, I guess. For them, it doesn't hurt. I know people who have really heavy flows who wear a tampon and a pad, which is, yeah. And those are mostly people who suffer from PCOS, I guess, which I will get to in a minute. But people who use menstrual cups are for sustainable reasons, mainly because pads, you dispose them after use. They're all single use, especially tampons and pads. Whereas with menstrual cups, you can reuse them.
Wait, but the material of tampons is the same as the one in the pads, in the sanitary pads?
Yeah, they're all like the...
So how does it not get wet when you go in water?
I mean, so tampons, I think because it's uncertain, it doesn't get wet, but pads will get wet. They will soak in the water. It's kind of like a diaper if you put it in water.
So the cups are reusable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just wash it with soap and then you use it back again?
I don't think it's recommended to use soap because that would mean that the soap, like if there's any remaining soap on it, it's not good for you to put it back in. I think you just wash it with water mostly. Maybe you use like more, what do you say, organic stuff like vinegar and salt or things like that to like clean it. Although I wouldn't personally know because I don't use a menstrual cup, but soap is not recommended.
Okay. When we do a different side, what age does the menstrual cycle start from?
It depends. I got it when I was 13. I know people who have got it even when they were 16. I also know people who have got it when they were 10. So I guess it just depends from person to person. I think usually it's between, for most people, between 11 to 14. That's when it usually happens.
But do you think this changes from generation to generation? Like maybe our parent generation got it a bit late and then our generation is a bit early, maybe like 10, but for them it's 13.
I think so. Because I know a lot of people from my mom's time got it around 15, 16. And then in my generation, people got it around 13, 12, 13. And I know people who are now just getting their period who are as young as 10. So I think generation might have to do something with it. But I also know that it really does differ from person to person. It could also be that my knowledge has limited the age. It's possible that when speaking to other people, they would be like, oh no, but from this generation, it's actually different. Could also depend on your race, where you're from. I think I think all of this, besides generation, would also play a factor.
Okay, so a lot of what you spoke, a lot of information. I feel a lot of men have got educated by this,
I hope so.
and one of them is me as well.
Thank you for listening. Join me next month on part 2, where we talk about the impacts of PCOS, share insights on period tracking applications, and also emphasize the significance of a supportive community during these challenging times. Until then, catch you next Monday with an imaginatory podcast.